The council chamber of Virex Prime had been designed to intimidate. That was not conjecture. It was documented fact. The ceiling arched upward for nearly 200 meters. A cathedral of alloy and living crystal meant to dwarf those who stood beneath it. Gravity fluctuated subtly across the circular floor, calibrated so that no species ever felt entirely comfortable. The air composition shifted in microcycles to favor no single biology. Even the light was engineered, cool, pale, and unforgiving, casting no shadows where one might hide. This was where the Galactic Council judged civilizations. And today it judged humanity. Leah Saren stood alone at the human delegation table. She was 23 years old. She wore no armor, no ceremonial robes, no visible weapons. Just a dark, unadorned envoy uniform with the human emblem stitched small and precise at the collar. Her brown hair was pulled back into a practical tie. Her hands rested calmly on the smooth surface of the table. Around her the galaxy watched. There were 47 council members present in physical form, and hundreds more observing through projection nodes scattered across known space. Predators, hive minds, silicon-based collectives, energy intelligences contained in crystalline lattices. Species that had conquered their homeworlds before humanity had invented agriculture. At the center dais, the Speaker of the Council unfolded to its full height. Zelvar Prime was not a single being, but a symbiotic triform entity bound together by neural filaments. Its three heads turned independently, eyes glowing with cold analytical light. The emergency session of the Galactic Council is now in order, Zelvar intoned, its voices overlapping in harmonic precision. Subject of review, the human polity of Soul 3. A ripple of attention spread through the chamber. Leah felt it like pressure on her skin. She did not move. The council has convened, Zelvar continued, to address a pattern of violations, anomalies, and destabilizing behaviors associated with humanity's expansion beyond its origin system. A holographic display flared to life in the air above the chamber floor. Images rotated slowly. A human engineer standing knee-deep in floodwaters on Vorith 4, surrounded by apex predators that should have killed him. A human medic kneeling in a plague zone on Tresha Minor, refusing evacuation while alien children died around her. A human freighter diverting power from its own shields to tow a disabled alien ark through a radiation storm. Another image. A human girl, 16, maybe 17, standing unarmed between two rival war beasts on a border world. Her arms spread wide as she screamed something the recording could not capture. The council finds, Zelvar said, that humanity demonstrates a repeated pattern of unauthorized interference, violation of prime developmental directives, and unpredictable moral action that destabilizes established evolutionary trajectories. A murmur passed through the assembled species. Some were fearful. Others were angry. A few, very few, were watching Leah Saren instead of the display. She is small, hissed one of the Corthian delegates, a Scalexus-glass predator with serrated mandibles. That species should not inspire this level of concern. She is quiet, replied another. Quiet things are rarely harmless. Zelvar raised one limb, and the chamber stilled. The council therefore moves to declare humanity a Class 10 destabilizing species, it announced. Effective immediately. Sanctions to include restricted expansion, enforced oversight, and if noncompliance continues, preemptive containment. Containment. The word echoed. In council language it meant war. Leah listened. She had known this was coming. Ever since the report started stacking too high to ignore. Ever since humanity's habit of not looking away had become a statistical anomaly too large to classify as coincidence. She thought of her brother. He had been a rescue diver on Earth, drowned pulling 3 strangers from a collapsed flood tunnel. The official report had called it heroic loss of life. Leah had called it Tuesday. Zelvar's 3 gazes turned to her. Human Representative Saren, the speaker said. You have been granted one opportunity to respond before the vote is finalized. One opportunity. Not to argue. Not to negotiate. Just to speak. Leah slowly lifted her head. The chamber leaned in, consciously or not. She met Zelvar's gaze without flinching. Is that all? She asked. The words were quiet. They carried anyway. A ripple of confusion passed through the chamber. Claudifa, Senva demanded. Leah tilted her head slightly. as if genuinely considering the question. You've listed floods we ran into instead of away from, she said. Wars we stepped between. Children we refused to let die because the paperwork said it was natural. She gestured at the rotating images. You call that destabilizing? Her lips twitched. I call it showing up. A hiss escaped from one of the delegates. Zelvar's voice hardened. Human Saren, this council governs trillions of lives. Emotional reasoning does not. Oh, I know, Leon interrupted. That alone caused a stir. Interrupting the speaker was unheard of. She didn't raise her voice. Didn't need to. You govern systems, she continued. Populations. Projections. Probability curves. You've decided humanity is dangerous because we keep ruining your math. The holograms flickered. You want us contained, Leah said softly. Because you've realized something. She leaned forward slightly, hands still resting on the table. You're afraid you can't make us look away. Silence. Deep. Absolute. Several delegates shifted uneasily. The Threxian observer, a being that fed on predictive certainty, felt its probability fields destabilize. Sandvars nevedon finaments purusient. Humanity lacks the authority to dictate moral exceptions. Leah nodded. You're right, she said. We don't dictate them. She paused. We are them. Something changed in the chamber then. Not fear. Not yet. Recognition. You think declaring war will stop us, Leah went on. That sanctions will make us compliant. That if you push hard enough, we'll learn to stay in our lanes. She finally straightened. Her smile was small, almost fond. My people didn't leave Earth because it was safe, she said. We left because it was drowning, burning, shaking itself apart, and we stayed anyway. We stayed long enough to learn something. Zelvar's voices overlapped, sharper now. And what lesson was that? Leah met the speaker's gaze. That the universe doesn't need more rulers, she said. It needs witnesses who refuse to walk away. She took a slow breath. So go ahead, Leah finished. Declare us a threat. Call it war if that makes you feel orderly. Her smile widened just a fraction. Finally, the chamber erupted. Voices clashed. Wings flared. Mandibles snapped. Probability fields fractured as predictive species struggled to model a human reaction that did not seek victory or surrender. Zelvar slammed its limb into the dais. Order. The vote counters began to activate. And somewhere far from Virex Prime, human rescue ships quietly adjusted their flight paths. Not toward borders or fleets, but toward storms, collapsing worlds, and places where someone was about to drown. The vote passed. Not unanimously. That alone should have terrified the galaxy. The final tally hovered above the council dais in cold white glyphs. 31 in favor. 12 opposed. For abstentions. A declaration of war by galactic standards. Zelvar Prime absorbed the result without visible reaction, but its neural filaments flared bright enough for the closest delegates to recoil. The motion carries, the speaker intoned. Humanity is hereby designated a Class 10 destabilizing species. Enforcement protocols will commence immediately. Containment fleets would be mobilized. Trade corridors narrowed. Human expansion frozen. Observation drones seeded into every system with a human presence. War not with weapons at first but with control. Leah Saren watched the vote counters fade. She did not argue. She did not protest. She simply exhaled, as if something she had been holding for a very long time had finally been said out loud. Zelvar turned all three gazes on her. Human representative, it said. You will transmit this ruling to your leadership. Compliance is expected. Leah nodded. I will, she said. She rose from her seat. That was when the first alarm sounded. Not in the chamber. In the galaxy. A sharp tonal spike cut through the council's shared data space. The kind reserved for priority crises. A dozen delegates flinched as their perception feeds updated. The Threxian observer recoiled violently. Its probability fields collapsing into static. This is not council-generated, it hissed. These alerts are simultaneous. Zelvar's attention split. One head already processing incoming data. What systems? It demanded. Another alarm followed. Then another. Dozens. Hundreds. They cascaded across the chamber as delegates received emergency pings from their own territories. Flood warnings, atmospheric collapses, core reactor failures, plague outbreaks, impact events, natural disasters by council definition. Unrelated, statistically inevitable. Except for the timestamps. They're responding already, whispered one of the smaller avian delegates. How? Zelvar focused again on Lia Saren. She was still standing beside the human table, watching. You coordinated this, the speaker accused. Lia frowned slightly. No, she said. You did. Confusion rippled outward. You declared us a threat, Lia continued calmly. That changes our classification under your own protocols. She tapped the table once. Which means we're no longer bound by your non-interference expectations. Not morally. Not procedurally. One of the council analysts pulled up a data overlay. Human vessels, civilian, research, medical, unarmed, were diverting course across dozens of sectors. Not toward council fleets. Toward the disasters. They're not mobilizing for combat, the analyst said slowly. They're deploying aid. Senvars filaments viktet. That is irrelevant, it snapped. Humanitarian action does not negate. Va. Lia finished. She looked up at the speaker again. You think war means we come for you, she said. That we meet you in space and prove who's stronger. Her expression softened. That's never been our kind of war. The feet sharpened. On a volcanic moon in Kesh space, a human engineering crew landed ahead of evacuation orders, stabilizing a collapsing magma dam with nothing but portable fields and their own bodies. On Trell 9, human medics breached quarantine lines to treat a spore plague the council had written off as an acceptable population loss. On Vorath 4, a familiar image appeared again. Varati matriarch standing shoulder to shoulder with human flood teams, defending evacuation corridors with claws and teeth against the rising waters. The Korthian delegates' mandibles clicked nervously. They're undermining containment through goodwill, it said. This is psychological warfare. No, murmured the Threxian observer, its voice unsteady. It's worse. It focused its perception on the probability streams again. They are altering outcome baselines. Entire civilizations will survive that were projected to collapse. Zelvar's central head tilted. Explain. Every intervention, the Threxian said, creates debt. Social, cultural, emotional. They are not conquering. They are bonding. The word echoed oddly in the chamber. You cannot govern a species that refuses to let your people die. The observer continued. Because once they save you, you remember. A silence fell. Lia rested her hands on the table again. You asked what makes us dangerous, she said quietly. It's not our weapons. It's not our ships. She gestured at the feeds. It's that once we decide someone matters, we don't stop. Not when you tell us it's inefficient. Not when you tell us it's forbidden. Not even when you tell us it's war. Zelvar's voice lowered. And what do you expect now, human Saren? Lia considered the question. Then she smiled, not sharp, not triumphant. Just tired. Earnest. Nothing, she said. We'll keep doing what we were already doing. She looked around the chamber. You'll call it defiance. Or contamination. Or moral hazard. Her gaze returned to the speaker. Our people will just call it helping. Another feed cut in. A council world, one of the oldest member species, had accepted human assistance for the first time in its recorded history. Its leaders stood alongside human responders, their posture unfamiliar. Grateful. The avian delegate swallowed. If this continues, it said, containment will be impossible. Zelvar said nothing. For the first time since the council's founding, it had no protocol that fit. Lia Saren turned to leave. Human representative, Zelvar called after her. She paused. If the council escalates, the speaker said, there will be consequences. Lia looked back over her shoulder. There already are, she replied. She walked out of the chamber. 2 months later, the term war had quietly disappeared from council documentation. Not repealed, just unused. Containment fleets found themselves escorting human relief convoys through hazardous regions because local populations demanded it. Sanctions failed as non-aligned species rerouted trade to include humans, citing unacceptable loss of life otherwise.